After working with over 150 brands, names like True Classic, Hexclad, Portland Leather Goods, I can tell you with absolute confidence, the brands that are winning and scaling right now are not doing it off of their media buying tactics. They're winning because somewhere along the way, they found a creative format that moved people. And more importantly, they figured out why. I'm Sarah Levinger. I'm a creative strategist, and I help D2C brands improve their ad performance using consumer psychology. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the ad formats that have consistently generated the highest return across every brand I've worked with, and I'm going to teach you the psychology underneath them. The standard playbook in D2C, especially in e-com, is launch, measure, kill, repeat. That playbook is leaving so much money on the table, it's almost painful to watch. Here's the thing about this. Performance metrics are never going to tell you why something worked. They're just going to tell you that it did. That kind of big knowledge gap between this ad performed, this is the psychological mechanism that made it perform. That's where most brands have a giant education gap. Not because they're doing anything wrong, really, but because nobody ever showed us how to do it. So we're killing our ad formats way too early because we don't even recognize what's working beneath it. We're scaling the wrong elements. We're trying to go after the hook or the headline. Maybe we're trying to get the same visual, the same offer, the same creator, when the real driver was something entirely different. I had a client come to me last year with a high-performing ad that they've already kind of shelved, which was kind of surprising. It had a great hook rate, had a really good CPA on it, but they couldn't figure out why it was working, so they just did what most brands do. They tried to iterate it to death. When it didn't work, they just shoved a bunch of ad spend at this one ad and went on to other ones. Listen, I don't blame them. Nobody's ever taught you how to read an ad through a psychology kind of a lens. And of course, you're going to kind of just default to like chunking spend at it and calling it a day. But when we pulled it back up and I looked at it carefully, it became really obvious what they were doing. The ad was triggering this really specific identity mechanism for their customers, and they had a whole untapped audience segment that they could have been scaling in the same kind of format. We brought it back and it became one of their top performers for the next 6 months. And this is kind of this knowledge gap that I'm talking about. And I want to close it for you in the next 10 minutes. Before we walk through these formats, here's this kind of point of view that I want you to use from now on. A format only becomes a moneymaker when 3 things line up. Number 1, it matches the customer's psychological state at that exact moment. Number 2, it reduces friction in the decision-making process. And number 3, it carries the right kind of emotional certainty. There's a lot of confidence in it, right? There's this feeling of like, oh, thank God I finally found something that's going to help me with this. Kind of a distinction here, very, very important. There's a very big difference between a format that performs once and a format that will scale again and again and again. A format that only performs one time usually gets caught up in a moment, right? It's a trend. It's a meme ad. It's something that just came and went really fast. Formats that actually scale are tapping into something stable in human psychology. There's a consistent behavioral pattern that shows up across audiences, across products, across years, and often across generations. This is what makes them worth working on. And once you can tell the difference here, you can stop chasing those trends and just start building a library of all these psychological mechanisms that you know work for your customer. Okay, so let's go through these 5 formats. They're super fun. These are the ones that I see win over and over and over. Honestly, these are the ones that I try and apply to the brands that I work with up front, just so that I can test and see which one of these is going to work for our audience. So this first one here is the Before the Problem Had a Name ad, and I've run these in a couple different accounts and they work so incredibly well. This is the ad that names the feeling your customer's been having for years, never had the words for. If you're this person and you struggle with this kind of a problem of like, I just feel awkward, or like maybe I just suffer from anxiety, or like maybe there's just something I can't quite name, but I'm constantly uncomfortable when I'm like out and about around people. This is the type of ad you want to run because people will see this and respond with, oh my God, that's me. And that's exactly what this ad does. The psychology underneath here is just recognition. Someone sees kind of this unspoken experience reflected back at them. Brain is going to treat it as proof that you understand them. Understanding is the shortest path to building trust. Brands that nail this format aren't really selling the product first. They're just selling the relief to be seen. The product is kind of secondary. So if you've been writing copy that leads with product a lot, this is your permission to stop doing that and try some of these. Format number 2 is also one of my favorites. This is the social mirror. This is the ad that kind of shows your customer a version of themselves that they want to become. Now, before you go out and run a ton of these style of ads, I want to make the distinction that this is not aspirational, it's attainable. I want you to go after a believable version of themselves. This was one of the very first style of ads that I ran, and this one actually ran back in 2024. And this one I specifically ran because it's a skincare ad. We hear a lot of very big claims in this type of industry, and it's something that's very difficult to break out. If you can't get attention, it's hard to get people to buy. This one, we started with just one teeny tiny little thing, an aspirational thing, yes, but an attainable thing that this customer type wanted. Switching your skincare is something that happens very often in this industry. You're constantly trying new products, testing things on your skin, trying to see what's going to work. That's something you don't want to do anymore. That's aspirational. You aspire to stop doing something. This is also common in the psychology of humans. In general, this version is only maybe 2 steps ahead of where this person is. Stop switching comes with buying this product, seeing that you don't need to switch anymore. The mechanism in this ad is actually identity alignment. This is the one that most brands kind of get a little bit wrong because nobody told them where the line is. Humans don't buy products, they buy proof of who they are or who they are becoming. When the ad reflects that kind of next step identity back at them, this purchase kind of stops being transactional and just becomes a part of who they're trying to be. The mistake I see all the time with this type of ad is being too aspirational too quickly. There's a big gap between current me and ad me. If that gap is too wide, the customer is going to reject this entirely. So it has to be reachable. Very important for this type of ad. Format number 3 is the reframe ad. And this one is one of my favorites because you can do so many interesting things with this type of ad. This is the ad that kind of takes something that the customer thinks they know and flips it upside down. This one in particular, he put up the tent, but you brought the flask. If you're the type of person that like your husband or partner, whoever they are, really loves to camp and you really love to just show up at the camp, this is a great way to kind of reframe how you're actually interacting and what you're actually bringing to the table during this experience. These are always so interesting because the psychology is really just belief updating. If you believe that like, I feel bad because he always brings all of the stuff and like, I just kind of sit there and wait, this is a good way to reframe your contribution. The brain kind of has to stop and recalculate a little bit when these type of familiar ideas get challenged in a way, especially if it's credible. That teeny tiny moment of like, oh wait, really, I'm actually doing something? This is great. Now you have their full attention. If you've been competing in a very saturated category and you feel like everything sounds the same, this is the format I want you to use. The reframe is what makes you stop sounding like everybody else. And it really is the difference between adding to all that noise in your industry and cutting straight through it. So take something that your customer believes and flip it upside down. Format number 4 is the specificity ad. And this one in particular is supposed to get kind of weirdly, almost uncomfortably specific. This is really interesting. This ad that I ran a couple years ago, the gift that says, I cherish who you were and who you're becoming. That's a very distinct thought process for this particular customer type, especially if you're the type of person that's looking for a highly sentimental gift. This is really important when you start to run these ads because the specificity itself is actually doing a lot of the work. This is a thought that only a few types of people would probably have, but there's millions of people in that type of person that might buy this gift. And this seems kind of obvious, but I think it bears saying out loud. Vague claims feel like marketing. Specific claims feel true, though. Even when the underlying truth is identical here, the brain is going to process them entirely differently. And there's a lot of research on this. Round numbers feel very much made up. Odd numbers feel very much measured, right? Which is the reason why if you're going to put a number in your ad, try really hard to make it something that's not super rounded. If you're also going to go for specificity in your ad, try and go for hyper-specific moments over just generalized, this is the best gift kind of a thing. Format number 5, also one of my favorites, also one of the easiest ones to make, is the earned confidence ad. This is the ad where as a brand, you're not really trying to like beg people to believe you anymore. They've already done the emotional work, right? They like you, they like your ads, they like your organic. You're just showing them receipts. This is where I want you to use third-party validation, real customer footage, proof that doesn't feel like it's produced, but the psychology underneath is just justified confidence. Like you know your product's the best. You know that there's nothing that could compare to what you have, so you're brave enough to show what makes you worth it. For this particular ad, I actually ran this last year sometime, and overall in this particular industry, prices are all kind of pretty comparable with a few outliers, but for the most part, if you're selling any sort of golf glove, you kind of have to justify what it is that makes your price higher or lower than everybody else. Putting it on the ad in a confident, pretty big, bold spot, just look like a pro for just this amount, pretty confident for us to put this on here and not have to make a bunch of claims below it to back it up. This is what I wish somebody would told me earlier on in my career. Customers can smell unearned ego a mile away. It triggers skepticism when you overproof. So when brands try and act confident just by putting crap tons of social proof on their ads, it can actually hurt you in the long run. The tell on these type of ads is very distinct. So I can tell when we have this style style of confident ad because it's all about the tone. It's not loud, it's not desperate, it's very calm, it's very grounded, and it acts like the customer's already decided to purchase from you, which psychologically nudges them to buy. Okay, so how do you actually use this for your specific brand and the ads that you're going to be producing this week? There's a 3-step audit that I run just internally with myself for every client that comes on board. Number 1, I want you to pull up your top 10 performing ads in the last 12 months. Kind of important here. I don't want you to pull the ones that are top ads by spend. I want you to pull by efficiency. We're looking at CPAs, CPMs. I want you to look at ads that punched above their weight in an efficiency way, not just because they happen to pull the most spend. This alone is going to change like which ads you look at, obviously. Most teams are going to audit their highest spend ads and then just be like, we did a great job. This is not the same list, right? So pull the top ads from an efficiency standpoint, mostly because this is going to tell you a lot about what people resonate with and especially what they are interested in enough to buy. Step number 2, for each one of these, I want you to ask 3 questions here. Number 1, which of the 5 formats is this closest to? Number 2, which psychological mechanism was it triggering? And number 3, what was the customer's mental state when this ad most likely hit? Step number 3 here is to find the gaps. So which formats are missing from your library entirely? Which psychological stages are you not speaking to? This is going to become your next brief, right? This is what you're going to be able to build off of as you're working through your creative strategy for this week. And it's not just like we need more content. It's maybe we need to be a little bit more specific on things. Maybe we need to show them that there's only 1 step for them to do, not 50. Maybe we need to like reframe things entirely. Maybe we just need to go and be a little bit more confident about how we are presenting things. When I do this with brands, the gap is usually pretty obvious within about 20 minutes. Usually these brands have about 4 ads that all do the same psychological thing. Maybe they're all using this style of like specificity, or they're using way too much reframing or whatever it is. Doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing, but you want to have a good mix of all of these so that you can start to generate better results over time with different types of audiences, right? This is not a content problem, it's a systems problem, and it's a system that you can build once you know what you're looking at. So here's what I want you to take away from this. I think the formats that we just walked through, these are not trends, obviously. They're not going to disappear in 6 months. They work because they're built around something that doesn't change, how people actually make decisions. Once you've got this point of view, and once you can name what's happening underneath your ads, you can start building a library of these that you can copy and scale and come back to over and over again. Not because you got lucky, but because you actually understand why this works. This is the difference between a brand that finds a winning ad and a brand that builds a winning creative system. If you want to see how I do this in real time, I would love to see you inside my school community, the Tether Lab. This is just a place if you want to think like a psychologist and market like a strategist. I host weekly calls, share my best resources, break down what's actually working in ads right now. The link is in the description, or you can scan the QR code on the screen, and I'll see you in the next one.